Don't mind the noise outside. The window is open because it is hot outside. And when it's hot outside, it gets hot up here in the office. So, you know, a little bit of a breeze coming in. But welcome to the first vlog going into this new randomized book reading series. I don't know what the hell to call this thing. It's just, we're just gonna be vlogs, okay? It's just gonna be vlogs. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna be talking about books and life and, you know, all the things, So anyway, if you guys saw my last video where I went over the rules of my new TBR randomizing game and everything, you would know that I also then rolled for the first book I was going to read, which actually ended up becoming a full series, because if I pick a book that is involved in a series, I have to then read the entire series before I move on to the next thing. So this vlog is actually going to involve 6 books. And here they are, all 6 of them. So the series we are going through is the Secrets of the Immortal Nicholas Flamel series by Michael Scott. And I read book 1, The Alchemist, many years ago. I want to say it's been at least 5 years since I've read this book. I want to say maybe not that long, maybe like 3 or 4, but regardless, it's been a long time. And I listened initially to the audiobook of this, and I liked it, but I felt like I really would want to like try reading it physically instead. So that is what I am doing. I am reading the physical copy that I have. I have the entire series. And the reason I actually have the entire series was mostly cut for my own interest, but then my husband actually helped me get the last 2 books in the series because he was interested in reading it as well. And he did read some of it, and I found a dog-eared page. I did get after him about that. I have not trained him on how to use my books because he doesn't normally read very often, so he does not know how I don't like dog-earing pages in my books. Needless to say, I was a little miffed, but it is fixed. It is fine. We're good. So, anyway, currently about 18 pages into this, and right off the bat, boom, just craziness happens right off the bat. So, if you don't know what the series is about, this is basically about a set of twins who are essentially hired in by this man that is essentially the immortal Nicholas Flamel. He is very famous for having turned many metals into gold, you know, things like that. And like, I mean, he's a huge part of like the HP series with the first book, you know, that kind of thing. Like that Nicholas Flamel that we're talking about. And also that is involved in the, you know, the Magical Beasts series, whatever the crap. Anyway, so this is following like a character that basically is based in a sense off the man, where he is completely immortal. And you learn that he and his wife Perry basically have been living immortal for the last 600, almost 700 years. And they've been able to do that by having this book that essentially gives them like the ability and the recipe to essentially prolong their life. And one day, very beginning of this book, one day the twins are basically working at their respective jobs. There comes this really strange, dapper looking man with a bunch of henchmen, and it turns out these guys are after Nick and Perry, and more specifically after the book that has been prolonging their life. And the twins know nothing about this. They know nothing about the fact that either of these two are immortal, nor about the book or anything like that. They just see that there's an altercation that starts up, and they're both like, what the actual fuck is going on all of a sudden? Like, what is this? Why is this guy turning into mud, basically? Because the guy that is the bad guy has created golems, which golems are very well-known magical creatures where they're basically beings made of clay that are brought to life. And so from the very beginning, like, it's right off the bat just like action, and you don't know what's going on, you don't know what's happening, neither do the twins, and the whole series is them essentially, from what I understand, them doing the bidding and essentially learning about the things that the Flamels essentially know about, and harnessing magic and all these things. So, yeah, that's basically, in a nutshell, what this is all about. So, like I said, I'm about 18, 19 pages into this, and I mean, I'm liking it so far. It's not necessarily like early YA, but it definitely is a YA series, and it's kind of a fairly well-known YA fantasy series. Like, I feel like more people know about it than not, because like it was kind of maybe their foray into the fantasy realm at first. And it's fairly short. Like, all the books are decent, you know. This one in particular is, without the extra stuff at the back, 375. Actually, no, that's not right, because there's the author's note. 369 pages. So this is going to be a fast read for the most part for me. I got a little bit into it last night after I finished my other book that I was working on before I went to sleep, and then I tried to read a little bit during my lunch break today at work, but I didn't have enough time because I kept talking with people. So, but the plan for this vlog is to read the entire series before this vlog is done, with as much, you know, talking about things as is needed, like as I come up with it, stuff like that. Sorry, there is an ant that I'm trying to get off of my desk that I don't know how it got into the house, but it's here. And yeah, so basically we're just gonna kind of like vibe with it. Anything that kind of comes to mind, things I want to talk about, you know, we'll kind of like pop in here and there. I'll keep you updated in terms of like going through each book and talking about my thoughts on them when I'm finished with them and my ratings. And then, you know, as we're getting further into the series, whether or not I'm still enjoying it, because there is such a thing as being able to DNF the series and deciding if I DNF the series that I'm going to yeet it. And if I find that especially multiple books in the series are 3 stars or lower, maybe yeeting the series at that point, kind of thing. I don't know if I would, I don't think I would necessarily get rid of them though if only one book in the series was more of a 3-star. It would be something where like as a whole, it would be like the average would be a 3-star, would probably be a good enough reason to get rid of the series. But if I'm finding that the books overall are like 4 or 5 stars a piece, like I might not necessarily want to, you know, get rid of it unless I don't feel the call to reread these. But this series though in particular has that kind of special caveat where, because my husband also wants to get through this series, I'd kind of hold on to it more so for him, because specifically he really wants to get through this series because he has very little memory of reading it when he was younger. But currently I am waiting on some people to hop in for this group project I have for school, so I gotta get kind of rolling with that here soon. But the plan for tonight, after I get all my homework done and stuff, is to continue reading The Alchemist and get through at least a good chunk of it. I would like to get to maybe page 150 if I can before I go to sleep tonight. I mean, it's a fast read, like the pages are really quick to read. It's, you know, it's a YA, so it's going to be a lot faster. So I would like to get somewhere between the 150 to 200 page range if I possibly can tonight. And then otherwise I have, in terms of like life stuff, so this week I've got a full week this week, and I'm already drained because today it's been hot and it's been draining my energy, and I'm just tired because it's getting close to the end of the school year for the rest of the schools in my district. And so I did find out that I'm staying at the building I've been at this past few days for the rest of the school year, and tomorrow they have like this like kind of cool celebration, like ice cream, slushy, whatever the crap. And then Thursday is field day. And then Friday is something, I don't remember, but the next week is our last week. We'll have 2 full days and then 2 half days next week. I'm hoping that I'll have a summer job by the time that ends next week, but I've yet to hear from the person that I interviewed with on Saturday, because they were going to reach out to my references and then kind of let me know from there, but I've yet to hear from them. I don't even know if they've contacted my references as of yet or anything like that, so we'll see. But I'm going to go and get some stuff done. I'm probably going to work on a little bit of homework while I wait for these guys to join in on our Google Meet call, and kind of go from there. So anyway, I will talk to you guys later when I've made some progress in The Alchemist to where I want to talk about something. I feel like that this is going to be a series though I'm going to pretty much enjoy. Whether it's going to be 5-star series or not is very, I don't know how likely it is, but at the very least, I have a feeling it's going to be at least a 4-star series, so I'm not going to complain too much about that, but we will see as time goes on. It is several days later. It is currently just after 5 o'clock on June 11th. I have made very slow progress in The Alchemist, but I am officially over halfway done with it. I'm currently on page 217 out of 369. So about 150-ish pages to go. I'm currently waiting on my class to start here in the next like 25 minutes. I just wanted to come and check in with you guys, talk about the book, talk about what's going on. I've been doing a lot of big girl things, okay? Like, I've been busy. I've been busy. So, doing the school stuff. Finally got a lot of doctor's appointments figured out. I had one of them today. Today was a half day for my kids. So, because it's the second to last day of school. Tomorrow we have another half day for the last day of school. And I've been just grinding, getting shit done, trying to like find peace and joy in some things. I had my first eye appointment in about 2 years today, which was good. I mean, my prescription really hasn't changed all that much, which is good. But we did find out that the placement of my eyes in regards to my glasses is very high. And so my prescription is usually placed like in the middle of my glasses, which is not helpful for me at all. So the new frames that I got, we did place the prescription a little bit closer to the top of the frame because that apparently was not something that anybody thought of previously. That was something I did not even know was a thing. Tomorrow, I have a phone call with my former therapist because she wants to call, like, just talk and check in on me, make sure how things are going, because I told her that I'm actually going in for some assessments to basically be placed with a new therapist and stuff like that, because my insurance that my husband has now, my former therapist, it's not going to work. Like, they don't take it, you know, it's not working out, unfortunately. So, which makes me really sad because I love my therapist so much. I love her. I've made such amounts of progress with her. Like, I loved my first therapist, my first counselor I ever had. But this one, like, she is unlike anything else. Like, she taught me so much about myself and my capabilities, and I've learned so much from the therapy that I've done. I need to open the window in this room because it is freaking hot. And then Friday, it'll be my first day of summer, and so I will be going early in the morning to get some assessments done. Basically, it's just for them to kind of like figure out what's going on, you know, figure out who's going to be the best fit for me in terms of a counselor or therapist, and then also possibly nurse practitioner, or even if they can figure it out, maybe a psychiatrist. That'll do both. Other than that, things are going pretty okay. I just got all of my homework done for this week. So after class and after getting done with this assignment we're going to be doing in class, I can just chill for the rest of the week. And then I have 2 more weeks left of these 2 classes I'm in, and then it's done. And this is the last, like, Zoom, WebEx class, whatever, for this one in particular. This is the last class we're meeting for this one. So very happy about that. But anyways, let's talk about The Alchemist. So I remembered basically nothing about this other than the fact that there's a pair of twins who find out that they are somehow magical and they get roped into a bunch of shit. So right off the bat, the first chapter is like, boom, we are in the middle of action, things are popping off real quick, and the ball just keeps rolling. It just keeps going down and going faster and faster and faster down the hill. So basically what this is it's about 2 siblings. There's Sophie and Nick, and I'm sorry, Sophie and Josh. Couldn't think of his name for a second. Nick is one of the other characters, but Sophie and Josh are 2 15-year-old kids who are spending their summer in San Francisco while their parents are on an archaeological dig. Their parents are archaeologists and are very well-known ones, so they tend to move around a lot. But for this summer, they are working in San Francisco while their parents are doing their archaeological dig, and they're staying with their great aunt. They both end up getting jobs. Josh ends up working at this little bookstore, and Sophie works at a coffee shop that's right across the street from the bookstore. First chapter comes in where, while Josh and Nick, another character, the proprietor of the bookstore, while they're working, this strange man comes in who immediately just starts tearing up the place and attacking Nick and Josh. And very quickly Sophie finds out that that's happening, and so she races over from across the street to figure out what's going on. And essentially they find out that this man named John D is a man that is coming for blood. He is coming to steal something away from Nick and his wife Perry, or Paranel as we find out. And essentially through the hijinks of what's going on, they escape what's going on, but John Dee does take this book called the Codex. You find is basically like this really magical book, essentially, that holds the secrets to eternal life, among other things, and it is revealed that Nicholas and Perenelle are essentially immortal humans. They have been alive since the 14th century. They've been around for a long time. They're basically considered alchemists, and they obtained their eternal life through the Codex that John Dee, our bad guy, has stolen. And Nick says that basically within the next month, if they do not obtain that Codex and get it back, that he and Perenelle will basically wither away and die. And so it is extremely important, first of all, that they get that book, but Nick also realizes that Sophie and Josh have very, very particular skills and have a very certain kind of thing about them that makes them very interesting, that he thinks that they might have be people that fulfill a certain prophecy that was listed in the Codex. And so they then go and enlist help from a bunch of different people to not only obtain the Codex, but then also train Sophie and Josh. Alongside all of this, during the altercation that happens at the beginning of the book, Perenelle, Nick's wife, is kidnapped basically by John Dee and is being held against her will. She is basically being, in a sense, held for ransom to some extent, even though she's a woman of her own power and she could hold her own if she really wanted to. But John Dee is basically warding her so that she cannot use her abilities nor her powers or anything like that. So she's basically helpless. The majority of the story follows Nick and Josh and Sophie, and essentially what they do is they enlist the help of a very old woman named Scathash, which they call her Scatty. She's basically what's considered a person of the elder race. Older than Nick and Perenelle. They are older than practically almost time itself. They are basically considered like the gods of different things. Like most of the pantheons that you will come across, like Celtic, Greek, Egyptian, Roman, whatever, they are all basically considered part of the elder race to some extent. There are varying levels of the elder race. There's people that are like at the top that are the eldest of the elder race. Then there's some that are part of other generations as time has gone on. Scatty is one of the people that's kind of in that second generation, so she's not as powerful as like the elders, but she is a formidable force. She is kind of like, if you want to think about it as like a Disney character, she's very much similar to Merida. She's got kind of like that Scottish Celtic kind of thing to her, which is interesting because then we enlist the help of the Lady Hecate, who many people know as a goddess from Celtic mythology, and various other things. Basically the mother of witchcraft, if you will, the maiden, the mother, the crone kind of person. Hecate, unfortunately, though, doesn't really enlist in much help, although she does decide that she will try to awaken the twins, because she agrees with Nick that the twins very likely are mentioned in the prophecy in the Codex as being those that can either save the world or destroy it. Because the whole point with what John Dee is trying to do is he's trying to awaken the elder race, who are very much against humanity being the controllers of the world, and they want to basically wipe out humanity and start over. And so Hecate is kind of one of the elders that is not really for that, and so she decides that she's going to kind of help them, and that's kind of where I've gotten to at this point. We also, though, do see John Dee's perspective, where he, you know, is in communication with different people within the elder race that he is working for, one of which is the Morrigan, who is also a Celtic goddess. The Morrigan, though, I think it's very interesting how these gods and goddesses are painted in this story, because, you know, some of them I would not assume to be villains. The Morrigan is one where I feel like definitely kind of more that anti-hero. I would never paint her as a villain, though, but she essentially is the one calling the shots for the most part, and she, though, is also kind of in a weird spot where she's like not the most powerful person to, you know, start this whole wiping out the world kind of thing. And so John Dee then awakens Lady Bastet, the cat goddess in Egyptian mythology, which, again, would not think Bastet as a villain, and especially because particularly Bastet is like in Egyptian mythology a goddess of like home and domestication and all these things. Like, she's kind of like a more good guy, if you will, whereas her sister Sekhmet is a little more on that side of where, like, again, that kind of anti-hero, but could, you know, I would think more of like the villainous kind of idea. So the way that Michael Scott is kind of like using these gods and goddesses in this storyline is very interesting. It's very different than I would expect. But yeah, so basically he has awakened Bastet, who is very powerful, and so now we are starting the beginning of the end, as it is. And so this whole first part of the book right here takes place in one day. And now we're on the second day of this adventure, which is insane. And so now I don't know what to expect. I don't remember much of what this book was about, but I am enjoying it immensely. I feel like it was such a good call for me to essentially decide to read this physically as opposed to doing what I did the first time I read this book, which was listen to it audibly, because from my recollection of reading it audibly, I did not really follow along very well with it. I mean, I think I rated it like a 4-star or something like that because I did enjoy parts of it. But again, I have no memory of it, and I feel like by reading it physically, I have a better memory of it now, and I'm enjoying it a lot more than I had expected to, because I only got through the first book in this series, but I knew that I liked it enough that I wanted to continue with it. So thankfully that is still the case. So yeah, I think I'm going to focus on this again tonight. I read like a chapter in the midst of like waiting for my eye appointment to start, and then I got home and I finished the chapter. And so after class is when I'm going to wind down and focus on this. I've been getting into a better bed night like routine where starting at like 8 o'clock at night I take all my meds, like my vitamins, my medicines, everything I need to take to help me get to sleep at night, and then I like will wash my face, or I might take a shower, you know, and to some degree like I'll either wash my hair, you know, at night, or I will just, you know, focus on washing my face only, and then make a cup of chamomile tea, and then I go lay in bed and I read for about an hour and a half before I fall asleep. Ish. You know, like the time, it depends on if I decide to wash my hair or not that night, which tonight would be a night I have to wash my hair. But yeah, so far, really liking it. I do feel, again, like, I don't know, like, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing for the way Michael Scott to write the gods the way he has. It's just, it's unexpected based on what I know myth-wise about Hecate and the Morrigan and Bastet specifically. Like, they're interesting choices. They're not choices I would have made per se if I wanted to probably look at the gods in the way that I know them. Like, if I was to write these gods, I would not write them this way. I would do that very much how I see them, which is more positive light. Like, the Morrigan can be kind of hit or miss. Like, it depends on like kind of the stories that you read about her. But I see her as very much that more anti-hero kind of thing. So I wouldn't have necessarily made her an adversary per se, and I definitely would not have made Bastet an adversary. Bastet, to me personally, is very much like more of like your go with the flow, kind of like just, you know, don't do no harm kind of thing, and then you won't feel my wrath, you know? So I'm not like docking anything for like the choices that Michael Scott has made with using these gods and goddesses, but there's just definitely choices I would not have made going in and writing this. Now, there might be a certain purpose to that. I don't know. I'm not Michael Scott. I'm not in his brain. I don't know what the purpose of writing these characters in the way that he did was, but it's enjoyable nonetheless. It's just, it's kind of hard to like distance myself from what I know of the myth versus what's in here. But one thing that I absolutely love when it comes to anything that is brought up about the myths, about like the culture, the folklore of the gods and goddesses, especially when it comes to how Sophie and Josh are looking at it. One thing that's constantly brought up is this fact that within every legend there is a kernel of truth. And I love that because that is basically it. Legends and folklores and myths all have some kernel of truth about what was going on at that time when it was being created. And so whether they're based on certain people or certain, you know, deities and gods and goddesses were created based on some type of event, you know, whatever it was, there's some kernel of truth to those. And I like that, and it kind of reinforces in my mind that this is like his take on what these gods and goddesses, you know, were. And I'm sure he's done his research on them. That's why he incorporated them in the first place. So it is helping with maintaining that distance between what I know of the myths and like how I would write it versus what Michael has done, which has been really helpful because it kind of just reinforces in my mind of like, this is not you writing this is not how you write this, like this is what he's decided and this is his choices. You have to be okay with the choices he's made for the sake of the story and for the sake of, you know, storytelling as it is. So it's a very interesting exercise to have to implement within this, but I'm enjoying it very, very much. I do think I will at the very least continue with the series, if not the second book, then continuing on with the rest of the books. But as it stands now, it's not like necessarily a 5-star. I definitely think it's still more in that 4-star range for me, in terms of like overall enjoyment. Like I like it a lot, I enjoy it a lot, but it's not my favorite story I've ever read. It's definitely not cracking that like top 5, top 10 kind of thing, but it's definitely a very nice book to read. It's very fun to fly through. It's very easy to fly through, and the characters are enjoyable, and I do have a lot of positive things with it. I just don't think it for any reason stands out to crack that like top 10, top 5 spot. So anyway, my class starts in about 7 minutes. I need to stop yapping and get into that. So I will talk to you guys when I have officially finished The Alchemist. I'll come back when I finish The Alchemist and get ready to start The Magician. I don't know whether or not at this point I'm going to include spoilers for like the books. I know this series has been out for a long time. Like actually, when was this first published? I'm curious. I know it was like in the like late 2000s, maybe early 2010s. Oh, 2007. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, 2007. I would have been about 10, so about 5th grade. I do remember seeing these in middle school, so yes, that does sound about right. So, yeah, so, you know, especially for 2007, though, that's actually really good writing for 2007, I'm not gonna lie. So, I don't know if I'm gonna necessarily do spoilers, though, because I know that there are still people out in the world that have not read this series, so I don't want to spoil the contents of it. But I will try to talk about the books as I can, like without trying to spoil too much information about things that happened in previous books or stuff like that. So anyway, yeah, that's going to be it for right now. I'll talk to you guys later when I finish the book. I'll probably give it a couple more days before coming back because I think I can finish this in the next few days. Like, especially since tomorrow I don't have any homework and it is a half day and my last day of school. I think I could probably be almost done with this and then finish it up on Friday when I'm home. So we'll give it a couple days. All right, so I have returned home after my excursion. I also stopped at the Panda Express in the mall and got some lunch. Hi, Oscar. And Oscar's very happy to see me now that I'm home. My handsome boy. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you for kissing and then sneezing in my face. He doesn't know what to do with himself. He just, if I come upstairs, he likes to be in here for a little bit. But it does get really warm up here, so I'm going to try not to take too long while I'm in here, but I want to go ahead and shelve the books that I got so that they're in their placement for when I'm ready for them. So, first and foremost, we're going in alphabetical order because I organize my books alphabetical by author's last name, then by title or series title, basically that kind of thing. So first one we have is Caught Up by Nevessa Allen. This is Nevessa Allen's newest release in the second book in the Into Darkness series. The first book being Lights Out, which I really, really liked Lights Out so much. Lights Out is a bit more of a kind of stalker, online stalker romance kind of thing. This one is basically all I know is like a biker romance. Like the guy is mainly a biker. And I don't know otherwise how they're related to the characters in Lights Out. I don't think that they technically are, but I could be completely wrong. I'm not sure. But unfortunately, this is not a signed copy. This is just a copy that they had because it just came out 2 days ago, I think. But it's not a signed copy, and I'm a little sad about that, but it's fine. So let me see. Nevessa is going to end up going on this shelf right here in the back. So let's get her on there. Now, one thing though I'm noticing is I forgot that I don't have a physical copy of Lights Out. I borrowed it from the library, so I will eventually need to get the first book because I really did like it, and it was a rereadable book for me. So that's a time for another time. So, but there we go. There's Nevessa. Let's see what I can fit back in here. And we're going to reorganize the bookshelves as we go. Okay, that one's full. So now we're going to go on to the next shelf, which is right here for my last Victoria Aveyard book. At least that was on that shelf. That should probably do it. Scooch these guys over. Get Blade Breaker right in there. Perfect. Okay, so we managed to get them all situated. Now let's go and show the next one, which is an autographed copy of King of Ashes by S.A. Crosby. I have loved the 2 S.A. Crosby books I've read so far. I think I have read almost everything, but here is the signature. I think I've read most of S.A. Crosby's work to date, except for maybe, yeah, just this one, My Darkest Prayer, and a book that he wrote with Questlove, which is The Rhythm of Time. So I need to read this one and one more book, and then I'll have read everything up to date with S.A. Crosby. But I've loved his thrillers so much, and so when I heard that this one was coming out this month, I thought this wasn't coming out until later in the month. Do not get me wrong, I thought this wasn't coming out till the 24th, but I'm not going to question it. Maybe my memory is just bad, but very excited to have this one. So Crosby is going to go down a couple shelves right around here, I think, in this shelf right here. So let's get this bad boy on there. Probably going to be a tight fit. We're going to have to do some rearranging. Yeah, because my copy of Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan is not going to fit on there. So I got to scooch on down and keep going. This one I'm uncertain of whether I want to keep. This is And Then She Fell by Alicia Elliott. I liked the idea of this, but I felt like that it took me a long time to get into it. And like, I wasn't quite sure whether it was like a psychological thriller or if everything was in her head for a long time. But I did really overall like the ending. I don't know. I'm undecided. For now, it stays on the shelf until I decide to get rid of it. But it also is a native author, an indigenous author, and so I don't want to get rid of it for that reason, like because of that reason. But I also don't know if I'll reread it. I think it's one of those things where I'm a little bit too up in the air to make a decision at this point, so we'll just keep it on there. Okay, so now we have switched over to this other set of shelves because we've got everything filled in so far, and the next book that I have is a signed copy of Riley Sager's newest book, With a Vengeance. I've really enjoyed the Riley Sager books I have read so far, and so I wanted to get the newest release. I don't have all of his books as of yet, but I've got a pretty good chunk of them, and I've only read a couple, like I said, but I really like them a lot. So let's see, this is going to have to go at the end of my line of Riley Sager books, which is going to be in this shelf right here, because again, I alphabetize by title, and all of his books are standalones, which is really nice, so it makes it a lot easier to like organize them. Alright, so we're going to put this bad boy right there, and this is where I get into also like my Sanderson books, so this is where like the big chunky things come in and take up a lot of space, so we'll see how this goes. Could probably squeeze in Tress. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Tress is going to be in there real tight. And then the last book that I purchased today is a signed copy of Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. I am hopeful with this one because I didn't care for the Monsters of Verity duology nor the Darker Shade of Magic series by V.E. Schwab, but I have really liked Gallant, and I fell in love with The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. So I'm a little more hopeful with this one. I don't know if it's a series, like if it's an opener to a series or if it's a standalone as well, like Addie LaRue, but I am very happy to have this on my shelves. I've heard really good things about it, and I'm a lot more hopeful considering this is more of an adult fantasy, and I've liked her adult fantasy previously with The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, that I'm going to enjoy it. For some reason, Darker Shade of Magic was just way too complicated for me. Like, my brain could not process it very well. And then I just didn't care for the writing when it came to Monsters of Verity. I didn't really like the characters all that much, so it was just personal taste for me. But Gallant, I really liked a lot of the stuff that was going on in that magic-wise, and the representation of a non-speaking main character, and obviously Addie is Addie, and I loved Addie so much. It made me genuinely cry, and I've heard that this one makes people sob too, so pretty excited for that. Okay, so Schwab is gonna be somewhere in here. I think it's gonna be down here on the bottom. Now this shelf too is a little bare bones, so it's gonna fit in right easily because this is where a lot of my Michael Scott books were housed, so that I'm currently working on. So that should be pretty easy to sneak this on in here. I'm just going to do a little bit of adjusting to figure out where exactly this is. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to put it right here before City of Ghosts, which I have yet to read, but I've heard that that middle grade series by V.E. Schwab is also very good. I've also not read the Vicious and Vengeful duology. It's on my, like, long-standing TBR, though. If we ever get to it, I'll be happy. But I wasn't sure if I was going to like those ones. That's why I never purchased them. But City of Ghosts I feel like I'm going to really like. And then I really think I'm going to like Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. So, but with that, that is all the shelving I need to do. Because then I still have space for my Michael Scott books. Which will go basically right in here somewhere. I don't think they'll all fit exactly like this. Like, I might have to shuffle these down a little bit eventually. But for the time being, until those books are done, this is an open space for them. So, there's that. But, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and get some stuff done around the house before I have a phone call with my former therapist to catch up on things and, you know, see how they're doing, and for her to see how I'm doing at 4. It is currently just after 2 o'clock. It's 2:16. So I've got a little bit more than an hour, almost 2 hours, to get some stuff done around the house before that call. And then pretty much for the rest of the night, I'm not really doing a whole heck of a lot. And we'll just kind of get through more of The Alchemist and see where we're at. So, hope you guys enjoyed that. So, it is Friday, June 13th. Happy Friday the 13th, everybody. It's currently, let's see, I know it's almost 5. What time is it? 4:46, and I've done a lot of things today. I've done a lot of things. I'm exhausted. Well, like, good exhausted, though. Like, first thing this morning, went and got assessed to basically be referred to a therapist and nurse practitioner. Got my appointment set up for my first intake assessment with them for a couple weeks from now. And did a lot of stuff around the house. Did a lot of creative things, like did my paint by number thing, diamond painting, writing, crocheting, coloring, watching YouTube videos, cleaning up around the house a little bit here and there. It's been a great day. I've gotten it all done basically before my husband gets home, and he'll be home in like 45 minutes or so. So I'm going to spend the rest of the night working on finishing The Alchemist. So I'm currently on page 240 out of 369, so I have like 129 pages left. I think I can get it done tonight if I really just sit and focus on it, because it is not my turn to cook tonight. I ended up taking my husband out for dinner last night because of some really great things that I can't really share as of yet, because like nothing's set in stone, but some really good things have happened for him recently. So we went out and celebrated, and so it is his turn to cook tonight. So I think I'm just going to focus mostly on this. Tomorrow I have a coffee date with a friend of mine, my friend Megan. You guys may have seen her on here before, but I do want to go hang out with her for a minute because I've not seen her in person in a very long time. We've talked on the phone a few times in the last little while, but it's the first time I'll see her in probably over a year. So very happy to do that and very excited to do that, especially because she just recently bought a house and she'll be moving here fairly soon. So I want to basically go hang out with her for a couple of hours, and then we'll kind of go from there. But for right now, I'm going to basically get myself all set up. I've got a candle burning that I wanted to light because it felt so nice and cozy. It's been raining off and on here all day today, which has been nice, and I think I'm just going to set some ambiance. Can't start my challenge yet because I have a booba on my lap. He came in and decided to give me a hug and kisses, and then he said, "Mom, I go sit here." Turn off my ambiance for a moment. You just enjoy me petting my little boy. Even though he's camera shy, he don't like being on camera. Come here. Oh, hi, buddy. Why are you being so snuggly? What's wrong? Puppy. Also, yes, I talk like this to my dog. Leave me alone. Bubba. Give me. Give me Andrew. Oh, okay. Hi. Oh, now, okay. Oh, alright. And now we're gonna itch. Okay. We good? Now that you've successfully covered me in dog hair? We good? Bubby, what are you doing? Why are you being needy? Are you grumpy because Dad's not home? Are you grumpy because Daddy's not home yet? Now he's looking out the window. Do you want to sit in here with me while I read? You can go sit in Dad's chair. Want to go sit in Dad's chair? Oh, I think I hear a Dougie coming. It is a Dougie! Hi, Dougie. And out, back he goes. He says, never mind. Okay, maybe I'll come back. I don't know. He can't make up his mind. Oh, and there we go. It is now June 16th. It's just after 11:30 in the morning. I am in the midst of doing homework, but took a little bit of a break so I can update you guys because last night I did finish The Alchemist. So I ended up giving this about a 4-star, which if I'm not mistaken is the same rating I gave it the first time when I first listened to it on audiobook. But let me tell you that I enjoyed this a lot more than I did the first time. Like, I retained so much more of the information. I knew what was going on. I was able to follow through with it, you know, that kind of thing. So, so let's talk about some of the things I really liked about this. Obviously, I really liked the pacing of this. I felt that it was, you know, it was intense throughout. Like, there was an ongoing chase throughout pretty much the entirety of this book. but it was really well paced in my opinion. I do think that there might have been like some points where it was a little bit like, okay, let's keep going, let's keep moving kind of thing, but the plot itself actually made very much sense, where like we first had to go here, and then now after we've gone through this battle, what's our next step? We go to this place, and then we go to this place, and now here we are. I think too that one of the things about the plot that I'm really interested in, that I was very happy to see because it made sense to me, is that there is this contention between Sophie and Josh, because one of them basically gets their powers awakened part through this book, and the other one is kind of floundering. And so the big bad, John Dee, takes advantage of that and is starting to try to sway the other person to their side, because they promise all these great things and basically make themselves out to be a better person than Nicholas Flamel, which I really liked. I thought that was a very smart thing. I think that that was exactly what I would have done if I had written this, where I would have like basically tried to pit the twins against each other. It's very fast paced, like I said, to where like it does feel like you're flying through the book when you actually sit down and like actively read it. I just have had some issues in the last couple of weeks with basically having time to sit down and actively like keep my mind in it without being distracted all the time, because I've got so many other things going on in my life. So this took me about 2 weeks to read, which is not normal for me, but in the last couple of months has become my norm, because I've been having such a hard time with like finding the time and the energy to read anymore, because I've just been in a really bad slump. But I did really enjoy this. I still have issues, I think, with just the overall way in which the gods were used for like villains and good guys. Like, it's a personal thing for me, but it really bothers me. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, everyone is able to, you know, do things in their own way when they're using, you know, these deity-like figures and historical, you know, recollections of like how the gods were determined and like whether they were considered good or bad. But like, it really bothers me that Bastet is a villain. It really does. It really grinds my gears very badly, and that doesn't go into my rating. It's just something that really still bothers me a ton. Another thing I want to talk about that I feel like no one really like looks into a lot anymore is that there's a lack of romance within this. I mean, obviously, for one, there's not really any time to have a romantic interest. There isn't. This whole book is nothing but Josh and Sophie just running for their lives and being tagged along in terms of like figuring out what the hell is going on and what's with the gods and what's this all about awakening. Like, there is genuinely no time for there to be a romance. Now, the very beginning though, when we meet Scatty for the first time, there is kind of a joke where like Sophie pokes fun at her brother and is like, you just think she's cute, you know, whatever. That could lead to something possibly later on, but that was like the only instance of anything to do with romance and relationships or anything. The real story focuses though on these twins and their connection and how scared they are, because they've literally been thrown into this entire endeavor just to try to protect someone who they think is their friend, and then they find out that they very likely are this profited duo that could bring about the goodness in the world or bring about the worst in the world. And I really liked though how Michael Scott didn't play into that romantic aspect of this just yet. I don't think there's a time and a place for it in this book, and I feel like though there's a lot of people out there who would be like, you know, shipping Josh and Scatty or whatever. I don't necessarily see it as of yet, because obviously there hasn't been enough time for them to actually like develop those kinds of things. Also, we have to talk about the fact that Scatty is like over 2,000 years old, and there's a whole thing to do with that, and Josh is a 15-year-old boy. But basically, one thing I really liked about this was the overall connection between the characters. The moments that we did get with Scatty, you know, on her own, with Josh and Sophie, the interactions we got where the twins kind of like had very meaningful moments with characters was really nice. I don't know how much I really do trust Nick though, because there are a lot of things that he is not really coming forward about. He's not really like talking about very much. Scatty seems to be more so the one that is going to tell you as it is, like kind of thing. She would be willing to answer the questions that are being asked, but Nick is very much one of those guys that he kind of like circles around everything, which John Dee uses to his advantage when trying to persuade one of the twins to his side, is that, you know, Nick doesn't really seem to say anything outright. He kind of lies about everything, and anything that he does say, there's some other kind of things behind it that he will not tell you. And then I do love too the perspective we get of Perenelle over the course of this, and how she kind of helps from behind the scenes, even though she's, you know, in a lot of ways trapped both magically and physically. And there is an instance that we get to by the end of this that I am very happy with. Like, the last chapter is from Perenelle's perspective, and I like the way that it sets up kind of what to expect with the next book, but it doesn't rely heavily on saying this is exactly what's going to happen. It just says, hey, this is like, you guys might think that you're coming up on the end of the world, but Perenelle's like, this is only the beginning. This is only the beginning of everything that's to come. Like, it's like literally not the end, it's the beginning of what could possibly be the end, but it also could not possibly be the end, depending on how things go out. So yeah, I really liked it. When I put it through Compile, it came out to a solid 4 stars, which I was pleasantly surprised with. I think that pretty much sums up in a lot of ways my feelings on this. Like, I really liked it a lot, like I do with most 4-star books, but it wasn't my absolute favorite thing in the world. And I think though that for a book that was published in 2007, it's really well done for that kind of a book, because a lot of times when I go back to books that are, you know, 15, 20 years older, that are very much in that kind of like spark of YA where things got really intense and like people were just putting out books left, right, and center that focused on all these different things that people were getting into at the time. I feel like that this is a really standout one for that time period, like as one of the better ones. There's very few in my mind that, like, if I go back and reread books from that time frame, that stand out very well. And this is definitely one of them. I do remember there being a lot of people when I was growing up really enjoying this, and I am glad to see that it does still hold true. I mean, there's a lot to do in here too with the idea of cell phones, which were just really starting to come out as like the big thing. Like, cell phones were kind of like always around for the most part, like especially like in the 80s and 90s with the big brick phones. But like the more compact ones and the idea of smartphones coming out was like really, really big in like 2007. So I really appreciated though that even if this was referencing those older iterations of that, it didn't really feel like it was referencing that. Like, you could easily modernize this very easily into something that would fit today's time frame, but you don't have to, because the book is, I think, in a lot of ways a very timeless piece for like my generation especially, that by modernizing it, you don't add any value to it, but you don't lose anything by not adding into it either, if that makes sense. Like, I just feel like this fits very well, even if it's actually set, you know, almost 20 years ago. It really fits in like the time of now, and will probably continue to do so until technology has so far advanced that this seems, you know, archaic in whatever ways. But I'm very glad that my game decided to pick this series first, because this has been a series I've been meaning to get to for a long time. And my husband did tell me that book 2, which is called The Magician, which is downstairs right now, he said that he thinks the second book is a lot better, which I'm surprised by, because for one, he hasn't read the books in a very long time. He never got through the last book, which was why he wanted to go back and reread these himself. But he says that from his recollection of reading these when he was younger, that the second book was even better than the first one. So I'm going to take his thoughts into consideration when I read that one. The Magician is extensively longer. This book was about 369 pages of like main text, and the second book is actually like closing in on like 470 pages, which is quite a bit, especially, again, going back to the time frame, like 2008 when The Magician was published. It's interesting that that is such a long book, because back then 400-page books were not really like a huge thing. And so I'm curious to see what all goes on in that, especially to bring it to length, and whether or not I'm going to feel like there's going to be needs for some cutting or needs for some like condensing of things. Because if we look at what book 3 looks like, The Sorceress, it's a pretty chunky book as well. It looks about as chunky as The Magician. This one actually is even a little bit bigger, I think, because I just looked at this. It's 483 pages. So I don't know, there's got to be a lot going on, but I just hope that it's not to the point where like I get into it and I feel like there's a lot that has to be cut. Because that was the thing with a lot of like the earlier like books that ranged in that 500 page range was that there was just so much that needed to be cut. I hope that that's not the case with both books 2 and 3, but so far so good. Liking the series, we're going to continue with it, and I'm pretty excited for what's to come because I really like the way that this is all set up, and I'm curious to see how long exactly it takes for things to finally come together, and then how much do we see of the aftermath of it. Like, where does the climax actually hit, and what do we see in terms of the falling action of everything. So this is going on the little bookshelf right here for my June reads. I'm currently up to 2 books that I've finished in the month, which is stellar considering in May I only finished 1 book and then started another that I continued into June. But I gotta get a lot of homework done here in the next couple of hours so that I have some time to be able to get some other things done before I have a class tonight. My last class for my class meeting basically for one of my classes, and we'll go from there. So I'll let you guys know when I've made some progress in The Magician and what some of my initial thoughts are. I don't think that I'm going to use this as like a spoilery kind of vlog kind of thing for the whole series, but if there are specific things that I find as the writing continues over the series that I want to talk about, that's kind of what I'm going to more so focus on. I'm not going to focus more so on the plot unless it has something to do with the writing, because I don't want to spoil this series, like I said before, for anyone that's not read it. That's not something I like to do, so I'm going to try to keep it as vague as possible the further I go on in this series. Hello, it is just afternoon on the 22nd of June, and I apologize if you hear stuff going on in the background. We've got the dryer running and it's laundry day, so anyway. A little bit of an update. So I read a ton of this in one day yesterday. I read 182 pages yesterday. You know why? Because I went with my husband while he went golfing. Apparently, I just need to go golf, or at least go watch my husband golf, or just go sit in the golf cart while he's golfing, and I'll get a ton read. So I'm basically about halfway done with this. Like, I am within like a couple of pages of being 50% of the way through this book. And I'll say I'm a little disappointed with this one. I feel that it's not a lot is happening at this moment in time. The most that is happening is the straining of relationships between some of the characters, which is very expected because of some things that happened in The Alchemist. I don't know how much I went into it the last time I talked to you. I can't quite remember because it's been a few days. But in this one, the first thing we see is an arrival of a new villain character named Niccolo Machiavelli, and he basically is like a big bad guy stationed out in Paris. Basically what we've seen thus far though is like this whole continuation of Nicholas and Josh and Sophie and Scatty basically running for their lives, going from place to place, trying to figure out who can help them, who cannot. And like, they haven't really made much progress. There is another character that does come up that we meet, and then there is a secondary character that does come up that we meet that is actually kind of important in terms of like the development of Sophie in particular. But like, not much has really happened other than like this arrival of some new characters and, you know, how they're hoping to help with these things, but then, you know, things kind of go to shit very quickly. But the biggest thing, like I said, is the straining of relationships, especially between Josh and Sophie, because Josh has a lot of resentment for Nick because of the fact that Nick kind of got them thrown into this whole thing. And there's some jealousy going on between the twins because one of them has powers, the other one does not. And so there is some animosity going on between them, but there also is a large portion of fear that is embedded within that. It's not just jealousy, it's overall fear for their twin, because the more power that the other twin gets, you know, it becomes really scary and they don't know whether or not they can handle it. And then there's a lot of fear that, you know, if they use the power too much, they could basically spontaneously combust, which is a thing apparently, where people just, you know, burst into flames when they've used up all of their auric energy, and they do not replenish it as they should. So there's like a whole like thing of fear that is permeating a lot of what the twins are dealing with, because not only are they being chased because of the fact that they are twins and they're supposedly a part of this prophecy, but like just the sheer amount of pressure that is put on these twins and the sheer amount of power in such a short amount of time that they have is crazy. Like, we're going on, like, if you're looking at the timeline of this, we're like, where I'm at is day 4. There's been 4 days that have gone by since the beginning of this story, and there's been so many things that have happened in that short amount of time. There's so many things that have been revealed, so many things that have developed. It would very honestly make anyone's head spin. Like, there are so many things that have happened, like, back to back to back to back to back to back to back, that have, like, that send you into a tizzy, and it's rightfully so. I don't know, for this one though, I feel like that, especially because this is such a big one, I would have expected there to be a little bit more like fleshing out of history and lore, which there is some, but a lot of it is just like running from place to place, not making any progress, not making any like real effort to change things, real effort to like get things back in order. Like, it's just a lot of being chased around, like, and that's fine and all when it comes to like obviously being a part of this cat and mouse game, if you will, but there's not really a lot of other substance to this except for the relationship aspects. And I love character driven stories, do not get me wrong, they are some of my favorite things, but for a series that supposedly is like really plot oriented in some ways and like has a lot of mythology and lore involved in it that very easily could have been, you know, implemented in so many different ways throughout this story, this one's a little lackluster. I do feel like this kind of sets it up to be like a second book, middle book kind of syndrome thing going on, which I'm not surprised by at the same time, but I'm also like a little frustrated because I feel like there's not really been much that's happened, and especially not something that would qualify to make it like a nearly 500-page book. Like, this book is 461 pages, and it feels like a lot could have been cut out, truthfully. Like, there's a lot of things that I feel like could have been cut out. We do, though, see a lot of things still happening on Paranel's side of things, which I do think helps to kind of build the plot a little bit more. There are some big reveals happening on her end that are very, very important, that I definitely think are really, like, they're needed. I feel like a lot of what needs to be cut is the stuff that's happening with Nick, Josh, Sophie, and Scatty. Like, there's a lot of things that need to be cut. Where I'm at right now, though, with the reveal of like a couple new characters and like their importance in this plot and their importance in this overall story, I really like. I'm very interested in what that has to offer, but there's a lot of like the first probably like 50% of this that could have been like condensed or done away with, because it's just a lot of basically running around chasing their own tails, that kind of thing. I'm really interested to see what happens further in this. I'm still enjoying it by all means. Like, I'm still enjoying the story. I'm rooting for the team to, you know, be the ones to win kind of thing, but there's just some things where I'm like, I don't know about this. I feel like it's alright. Like, I don't think it's gonna rate as highly as the Alchemyst did when I put it through like Cawpile or something. I feel like it's gonna be more in that 3 to low 4-star range, but I don't know. That could change because I still have the other half of the book to go. And there's Oscar. Hi, buddy. Hi, Bubba. What are you doing? So there's some things that I definitely feel like could be, you know, made better, but, you know, it also is like the second book in a 6-book series. So there's bound to be some issues with it here and there. There's bound to be some lackluster things because you get towards the middle of a story, it can be a little bit lull and a little bit, you know, lackluster. But, you know, we'll see. I'm sure that I'm going to finish it and enjoy it enough to where I'm going to read the rest of the series, but you know, it is what it is. So my plan is to sit and read so far. I did the math because I'm on page 228 out of 461. I have about 233 pages left. Like, I am almost exactly halfway with this book. And so I would like to read more of it. I don't think I'm going to read 182 pages today because I have other things I'd like to do as well. Alright, I'm going to check back in with you guys when I finish this. I think that's going to be the next time I come in, was when I finish it. So I can give you some of my more in-depth thoughts on it. And then that way I can also get out like a bunch of like other stuff with it. Like, I'm trying to on my Instagram post like a little photo of the books that I read and like have a little mini review, and then like on my TikTok have a little bit more of like a mini review of what goes on in these books. So I'm hoping that if I don't get those done today, I can get those done tomorrow, add them to my to-do list, and then be able to get right into the Sorceress sometime tomorrow. But we'll kind of see. We'll see where we end up. At the very least, I'd like to be able to finish this while my husband's gone this week, and then also, like I said, start the Sorceress, which is book 3, at some point this week while he's gone, and then make some good progress in that. So we'll see. But I'm gonna head out for right now, and I will talk to you guys later. Oh god, that is really badly reflective. Okay, we're gonna take these off. I got new glasses today. I didn't get the anti-reflective coating on it or anything though, because I couldn't afford it at the time. I was only gonna end up having to pay $35 for my glasses when I went a couple weeks ago. I didn't really have the funds to get anything else, so yeah. Anyway, so today is Monday. It's currently 2:45 in the afternoon. I've been a busy little bee running around all heck in creation because these guys came in to this morning. So I went and grabbed them, and then I also grabbed a few other things that I needed and stuff like that while I was out. Excuse me. And so then I've been home basically just doing a bunch of stuff around the house. I'm downstairs at my husband's desk because he is gone for the next few days. He is off at a conference, and it is way too freaking hot upstairs for me to be up there doing what I want to do. So it's downstairs because we've got the AC on, or the AC plugged in, our little portable air conditioner. It's like 30 degrees cooler down here than very likely what it is upstairs. Even with the windows closed and the shades drawn, it's just too hot. It's too damn hot for me to be up there. So what I'm doing right now, I just finished eating a little bit of a late lunch, and planning on sitting and reading for a little while. I think I'm gonna go sit in the media room and do that, because I would like to be able to get through more of The Magician. I was going to update you guys when I had finished the book, but I figured I'd check in today because my husband is going to be gone for the next 4 days. So there's a lot of things we can do in that time, reading and otherwise. I also still do have to do some work, but I'm going to take I have to finish up a few things for classes that are due by the end of this week. But I figured I'd spend at least a little bit of time doing some reading, you know, kind of like see how far I can get kind of thing, and go from there. Well, good morning. It is actually the first day in a handful of days where it's not been ridiculously hot or humid. I mean, it's still humid, but the temperature is actually like a fairly reasonable 75 degrees. It's been like 90 the last couple of days and been absolutely terrible. But I got an Oscar down here who's begging for scritches, so I'm gonna give him scritches while I talk to you. So I just got back from my intake assessment with my new therapist, which unfortunately the guy that I'm going to be seeing for the next 5.5 weeks is in the process of moving. And so he's only going to be there for the next 5 weeks until like basically the beginning of August. So thankfully though, in the time that I'm going to have with him, he's going to find out someone else in the same building that can work with me. It just so happens that unfortunately I've caught him at a point where like he's on his way out. But it's not because of like turnover or anything, it's purely just because the guy's moving. Just odd happenstance kind of thing. Anyway, so that went well. I have to call a couple places to get some medical records moved over from my previous counseling center and from the last primary care physician I had seen a couple of years ago. If they even still have my records, I don't know if they will, because the doctor that was there is no longer there and hasn't been for probably about 6 months to a year or something like that. Anyway, so I am back home right now for a hot second because I needed to grab something before I headed out to run some errands, and then at about 1:30 I am meeting a new friend. Well, I say new. She's kind of been a friend for a minute. It's just I'm actually going to spend my first time out with her outside of her workplace because I made a friend at my local independent bookstore A girl that is very, very sweet, very cool, and very much somebody I want to hang out with outside of, you know, the bookstore. So I'm taking her out for coffee because this week is her birthday, which is funny. I have so many people anymore that I'm meeting whose birthdays land within like this week or like this end of June area. Because my childhood best friend's birthday, Megan, you guys might remember her from a video a long time ago, her birthday is on the 26th, and then so is my high school best friend Erica, who I also have had on the channel previously back when I first started. Her birthday's on the 26th as well, or the 28th. I always get them mixed up which one's which. And then my birthday is literally 2 weeks from yesterday. So it's kind of odd how I'm finding so many cancers around me anymore. But I'm going out for coffee with her I'm going to take her out for coffee for her birthday and go spend some time with her outside of the bookstore, which is going to be fantastic. I'm very excited. And we're going to a fairly local, like, coffee shop / bookstore, like another independent bookstore, which is very exciting because I've never been to this one, but I've seen their ads all the time on like Facebook and Instagram, so I'm very excited. So I'm going to take my camera with me and try to film a little bit in there while I'm there. But I gotta run a few errands first. I need to call those offices before I forget, and make sure my records get sent over as fast as possible. So yeah. I'm going to take my book with me too because I'm planning on running my errands and then just going straight to the coffee shop, and I'll probably get there before we're supposed to meet, so I'll just kind of sit and chill in there for a little bit. But yeah, so anyway, I'll talk to you guys a little bit later. I finally finished it. I finally finished The Magician. Oh my god, that took way too freaking long for me to read through this whole thing. I'm gonna equate it to mostly being the fact that I'm still slumping really hard when it comes to reading, but this pacing of the book did not help. It definitely felt like I slogged through a majority of this book because there was not really a lot happening. I mean, there were things that were really important that happened, but there was like a lot of time where I felt like we could have just like cut down, skip to the next thing, you know, that kind of thing. I feel like that this was a little bit too long in terms of like building, not necessarily suspense, but building like the action and things like that. It just, something about it was way too long for me. But I did end up giving this a 4-star. It came out on CallPile to equate to be a 4-star, just like The Alchemist. However, this was a little bit lower on a 4-star range. This one came out to be a 7.14 compared to a 7.86 with The Alchemist. So didn't like this one as much, but still liked it pretty comparably. Like, I would definitely say that a 4-star fits this really well. I just feel like that the pacing overall was not what I wanted it to be, and it definitely did not help me get through the slump. Like, I wasn't itching to get back to it at any point in time. I felt that it was kind of one of those things where if things didn't happen the way they did in the last like 100 pages, I probably could have very likely DNF'd it, which I do not necessarily think would have been great, obviously, because that means I have to eventually get rid of the whole series, or at the very least give the whole series to my husband because he loves these books and so he would want to probably keep them. But finally got through this one. We are all done with this, and that ticks off 2 of the 6. We're a third of the way through this series now, and I will say that I really like the way that this overall ended for all of our characters, you know, respectively. There's a lot of things that happen in terms of Perenelle and her navigating where she is all on her own with very limited powers that she has. Then you have Flamel, who is like waning as time goes on, because as the story goes, the more days that go by without this elixir of life, he starts to wither away. And some really cool things happen for both Sophie and for Josh in this. And Josh also gets really roped in with our villains by toward the end of this. Not to the point where like he fully flips sides, but we get awfully close to that, and I'm not necessarily a fan of that. I don't like that, but I like the way that that built some tension in the story. I feel like I don't want to talk too much about it though, because I don't want to spoil this series for a lot of people if you haven't read it as of yet. But I think that this is a pretty okay second installment. It kind of has a little bit of that pacing issue, but it was still really cool overall. And there's some really cool people that we meet in this one that I believe are going to at least carry on into the next book, if not the rest of the series. And I'm very excited for where that's going to go, because we were revealed at the very end in the last chapter. There is the reveal of who they're going to go see next. And that is a character that I am very much like, how are they going to play into this? How does that work into this whole story? So I'm very excited. So that is going on the shelf right now for the books I've read this month, which is a grand total of 3. We've gotten through 3 books in the month of June, which is better than May, which was, I think, 2. So we're there. So next one is book 3, which is The Sorceress. This is going to be another chunky one. I think this is about the same length, if not maybe just a little bit different. Oh, it's a little bit longer. 483. So it's about 22 pages longer than The Magician. But the most I can tell you is that going into book 3, all I know is that they're obviously going to go see somebody else, but they're traveling from the city of Paris to the city of London. Definitely doing some glow popping, and I'm pretty excited about that. I love when like there's a constant movement. I just hate when there's not enough movement in like one span of time. I liked in the first book how there was constant movement. There was constant like feeling like you were literally either chasing your own tail or being chased. And I feel like in The Magician we didn't really get that, because we were pretty much set in one city the whole time. We did bounce around from different parts of the city for the most part, but it felt really stagnant otherwise. So I'm excited to see that we're not only going to see things happening in Paris with our villains, but also we're going to see a lot of things happening in London. And then we still have a whole aspect with Perenelle where she is trapped specifically happening. And my god, Perenelle in The Magician specifically, such a badass. Like, she is an underrated badass, and I love it so very much. She is amazing, even with very limited powers. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for how this one's gonna go. Let's look at like the timeline in terms of when this one was published compared to The Magician, because The Magician came out about a year after The Alchemist did. This one also came out about a year after. So this one published in 2009. So we have a book published in 2007, 2008, and now 2009. So they're coming out pretty quick between each other, which I will say is one thing that I do not feel like that hinders anything with the story. Comparatively, how we will see a lot of novels and series specifically that kind of come out back to back to back almost, where there's like a very low quality or things feel really rushed or something like that. I think one thing that this series has going for it is that there doesn't feel like a loss of quality when it comes to individual novels being pushed out back to back to back. I think that just, in particular, The Magician was a little bit more slower paced than I had anticipated it, and it was kind of one of those things where I didn't care for that as much, but it didn't lose out on quality though either. The writing was still very good. I really liked the way that the story had developed. I liked the things that were going on with it. It was really well done, especially for a mid-2000s series, and I have high hopes that this is going to also continue, and especially because this is like getting to the halfway point in the series. I'm hoping that this is not going to suffer from that kind of middle book syndrome kind of thing, but who knows? We'll kind of see as we go. So I will try to be a little bit better about vlogging as I go. I'm going to try to get better about reading often as I can. Just for some reason, The Magician, I felt like definitely did not help with the pacing of it with my slump. And I'm hoping that I'll kind of get back into like a typical reading gear here really soon. I did though start my next class and last class for the summer here a couple days ago, and like we get right into full gear starting tomorrow. And although I only have the one class, it's going to be probably pretty intense in terms of like the projects and the amount of reading I have to do for it. So we'll kind of see, we'll kind of go from there. But for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go film the TikTok review I'm going to do for The Magician and get that all set up so that I can edit it later and hopefully either push it out today or tomorrow, as well as the Instagram like little picture that I'm going to do for it. So we're gonna go from there. I do want to though do some other things around the house while I am home, because I've had a very busy week this week with like meeting up with people and doing all kinds of things, and so this is like the day where I'm definitely gonna be like staying home, doing all the stuff that I can around the house, and then also doing my creative projects and stuff like that. So we'll kind of see how the day goes, but I'm excited. I mean, I am excited to get started with the Sorceress, so maybe we'll come back to that later tonight and get started on that and make some good progress through it. Hello, it is currently about 5:45 in the evening on July 5th. So, a couple updates in terms of like life stuff. So, I ended up actually getting Robert's laptop for kind of my birthday, as well as a new monitor that I can now use upstairs. I'm currently downstairs because it's way too freaking hot. But my laptop that I had been using, the keyboard had several keys that would not work, as well as the trackpad on it was no longer working, and I've had that laptop for probably close to 5 years at this point, so I was due for an upgrade. And Robert had recently gotten a laptop for school, but basically he had said that he saved up enough money to where he could build a new PC for himself that he could do everything he needs to on for school and gaming and other things, and this laptop was going to be really good for me for like getting back into streaming and stuff like that. And so he offered it to me, as well as like offered the idea of buying me a new monitor for my birthday. So that's what we're doing. We still have plans on my actual birthday to go out to dinner and stuff. And there's a Dave & Buster's in our area that we're going to go to that opened up a couple months ago. So we're going to go do that, which I'm really excited for. But I have made a little bit of progress here and there with my book. I've just been so busy with other things that I have not really had the time to like sit and focus on reading. I, though, think that at some point later tonight I would like to. Robert is currently out a ways away visiting some friends. Yeah, it's just kind of been like a pretty relaxed kind of day. Nothing's really been going too crazy. Nothing's really been too, you know, it's just been like I've been doing a lot of different things with like, you know, keeping the house clean best I can, going back and forth to my parents' house to help my mom with stuff, to like get money for that, and you know, just trying to like make ends meet for myself personally, because like I've got my own bills, and because I don't have a steady income right now, like I'm literally working as much as I can to do stuff, but it is what it is. We're figuring it out. So anyway, I didn't really want to update too much just because like there hasn't really been a lot that has changed in the last handful of days, except for like the computer stuff and everything. So I'm just gonna probably read at some point later tonight, and yeah, we're gonna call it good. So I will see you guys when I've made some freaking progress. I don't know. I'll get to reading at some point later tonight, and my goal is to try to get through to like the 300 page mark or 350, because I think I'm closing in on like 275 or something page mark on the Sorceress, which I'm loving the book, by the way. I think I'm enjoying it a lot more than I was the Magician. There are a lot more characters that pop up in every single book that I'm really enjoying, and I think that the pacing of the Sorceress is a lot better so far in the first like half of it. So I will see how the rest goes, but so far I am enjoying it a little bit better. The new characters we get in this one are another famous historical figure that we find as an immortal. We get a villain that comes back that I thought was gone in book 2, and they kind of reappear in this one, and I'm kind of interested to see how that is. We get more villains. We get like Paranel just being a badass as per usual, kicking butt and taking names kind of thing. I'm very proud of her. And one thing I will say with this series that I found to be a bit of a contention point with me personally, and I'm sure this was the same for a lot of people when they read this series, is that the whole act of Flamel not actually telling anybody anything of what's going on, not actually divulging what kind of information whatsoever, especially to the twins, it's infuriating. It is truly infuriating, because a lot of the things that have been happening would have been gone over a lot easier, I think, if Flamel had been extremely outright with both Sophie and Josh. It's not to the point where like things could have been avoided. Like everything bad still would have happened. Do not get me wrong. Like they are unavoidable things. But I think that overall things would have gone a lot smoother, possibly, if the twins were let in a little bit more than what they're currently getting. Like, they're getting basically no information from Flamel until things happen, and then it's like, well, this is because of, like, this, and this, and, like, oh, by the way, there's these people that are going to be after us, too, and there's these things that are going on, and there's these kinds of monsters, and da-da-da-da. Like, I think Josh and Sophie would be better able to cope with a lot of the things that are going on if Flamel was outright telling them these are the things to expect and this is why, and you know, this is why I'm so involved in this and why you're involved in this and all these things. Like, and do not get me wrong, it is mentioned so many times in this book that there are characters that are like, why are you not telling them what is going on? Why are you not telling them anything about what is happening and why it's happening and why they're involved? Like, Flamel really gets his ear yanked on by like a lot of characters in this series, which I respect wholeheartedly because it really like exemplifies the fact that Flamel is not necessarily all entirely good and that he has things for his own benefit that he is trying to make work, and it's just, it's very nice to see a lot of other characters be like, dude, what the fuck? Why are you not telling these poor kids what's going on? They're like scrambling here, they're fighting for their lives, and you're not even telling them half of the story of what's been happening and what's going on or why things are happening. And it's just, it's very gratifying to see, let me just say. But it is really frustrating as the reader because it's like there's so many things that happen and I'm just like, and there's things that Flamel is like, oh yeah, by the way, this. And I'm like, you couldn't have said that like 10 minutes beforehand? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, why? So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at with this book and the series, but it's so far going really well. Again, the first half of The Sorceress is going a lot better pace-wise, and I hope that that continues in the second half, because I'm basically nearing the halfway point of this book, if I'm not there already. And I think it's so far a lot better than The Magician. I wouldn't say it's better than The Alchemist per se. At this moment in time, it'll depend on how the second half of the book, I think, ends up, but we could be looking at a possible, you know, contender for the #1 spot in the series. You know, it's entirely possible, because I'm enjoying this one a lot more, and I'm definitely feeling drawn to it a lot more. I just haven't had the time or the energy when I go to, like, have the time to sit and read, because I'm, like, been so exhausted with running around and doing all these different things, and there's more of that to come with my birthday coming up on Tuesday, and I have a therapy appointment on Monday, and Friday I have my first doctor's appointment with my new doctor, and it's just, there's a lot going on. So anyway, I'm gonna go make something to eat because I am so hungry, and I will talk to you guys a little bit later. All right, hello. It is Sunday, July 13th. I don't know why there's this fuzzy spot here. It's just, I think the light, how it's coming in from the window. I'm gonna try to make this quick because it's really hot up here, and actually I'm gonna turn my fan on just a little bit. Hopefully it's not super loud, but so last couple of days have been kind of busy. I mean, I've been like going back and forth to my parents' house, stuff like that, but I've also been like editing this vlog as I go, and I've just been kind of stumped on The Sorceress here for a couple weeks now, but I finally finished it last night. I did a 24-hour readathon that I posted a bunch on my TikTok and Instagram doing, and I finished not one but 2 books, almost 2 books in that time frame. The other one is not for this project. It was a separate book that I wanted to read in the month, but I did finish The Sorceress. Wow, that is really blurry. Why is this so blurry? Hopefully that's better. I don't know. I think it might be because it's really hot up here and it's causing like some kind of like a weird thing, but we did finish The Sorceress, and I ended up giving it a 4-star. I do think it was slightly higher than The Magician, but let me double check that real quick in terms of my Caw Pile rating. So it came out to a 7.57. So yes, it did do quite a bit better than The Magician did, but still wasn't like as good as The Alchemist. And that was for a handful of reasons. And I think that this is kind of gonna be the thing that I like notice with a lot of these books, is the length is really too long. I feel like that there's so much that could have been condensed down from this. Mind you though, there are a lot of characters that come up and a lot of things that happen, but it just felt like for some reason it was taking me so long to get through it, and I just kind of was not as enticed to come back to it after, you know, putting it down kind of thing. And I feel like that's been kind of par for the course with this series, is that like I like it enough that I do want to continue with it, but the actual like getting back into it is sometimes a little difficult for me. But anyway, this one follows essentially the picking right off on day 5, I think it is, of this entire adventure that we have going on with Josh and Sophie. Essentially, we have moved from San Francisco in the first book to Paris in the second book to now London in this third book. And London is the home of Dr. John Dee, and there are a lot of people that are on his side of how things are going. But Nick has basically decided that they're going to go check in with a person that he has not seen in a very long time, who very well could be an enemy of his now. And that is Gilgamesh the King, which Gilgamesh is known in Hindu mythology more so, I believe, or at least that's what I remember him from. But he is going to hopefully train the twins in water, the element of water, and being able to use that as a power of sorts. So one other thing that we do is we see a lot with Perenel's side of how she's actually like making big moves in this one to escaping. She's finding some common allies with people that are kind of trapped on the island with her, and she's basically making gigantic moves to the point where she actually can possibly escape. And I don't want to spoil too much, but I feel like this is one of those series where like there's so much that happens in this one in particular that book 4 is going to have a lot of spoiler based content within it if I try to talk about it, even just looking at the synopsis for one. So there might be some spoiling going on because it's something I really can't help unless I'm just talking about the book objectively, not looking at the individual pieces. But as far as character development, I do feel like Josh and Sophie both have grown a lot in this very short amount of time. I mean, they kind of have had to because of all of the things that have been happening to them in these last 5 days. There's a lot of things that are going wrong in the world because of all the elders and people that are after the two of them and Nicholas Flamel. And we also see like other perspectives with several other characters that come up in this, which is a villain we met in The Magician, Niccolo Machiavelli. He does make an appearance in this and has a perspective. But let me just say that our main bad guys in this definitely get into some very, very hot water over the course of this book, which is very nice to see. It's very nice to see that like you can kind of understand that they are not ultimately the biggest of bad villains. Like they are, if anything, the puppets that some of these other big bads are basically controlling. There's a lot at stake for both Dr. John Dee and Niccolo Machiavelli and any of the other people that are being tasked with going after the twins. There is a lot at stake for them. Like there are things that can happen if they continue to fail at what they are doing, and it is made very apparent that they are not pleasant things. They are not things that we would really be happy with, kind of things. So I like that that's kind of an aspect brought into the book, is that there are bigger things at play and that the people that we see as villains are really just puppets for the actual villains, which is very interesting. There is a lot of exploration of the different versions also of the gods and goddesses. I feel that especially some of the more well-known ones, it's very interesting to see how Michael Scott has developed these characters based on the various stories that there are. I know that with book 1 I had a little bit of a gripe when it came to one particular goddess that was mentioned, and I still to this day think that that is not necessarily how I would have painted her, and she makes an appearance again in this book, whereas in book 2 she really didn't have anything going on in that one. But I will say that a lot of the characters that are brought up in this as like villain goddesses and gods kind of thing, I do like the way that he has kind of looked at the various stories involving these gods and goddesses and painted them in a way that does make sense based on their stories and makes sense based on their overall demeanor. But you know, with the exception of like one character, I definitely feel like that one character in particular does not need to be a villain by any means, but I digress. So yeah, so a little bit better faring on book 3 compared to book 2. We're still, you know, in that 4-star range across the board at this moment in time, which is fine. It's going to be, I think that's going to be kind of par for the course. I will be really surprised if any of the books get a 3-star, because I am enjoying them immensely. I do feel like when I sit down and I read, I fly through the book. Like when I was doing my 24-hour readathon last night, I read through like the last almost 200 pages of this, and I was flying through it. It was very fast to fly through. It just took me like a long time to like want to come back to this for a while, I think, because there were just so many points where I could have dropped it and like soft DNF'd it, if you will, and like come back and, you know, just whenever I chose to. But I'm glad that I didn't, because like I feel like that would have done this series a bit of a disservice, because it's really good. It still is really good, especially as you get closer and closer to modern time with these books. They're really well done. They still feel timeless. They still feel like they could be happening in modern times, you know. And I do love the characters. I do really love Sophie and Josh a lot. I think that they are honestly victims of circumstances, and I wish that they didn't have to go through half the things that they did, because a lot of it is very traumatizing and it's very heavy on them, especially because they're 15 years old. But I think that this story is overall really well done, and especially because it's from that like late 2000s time period, is still one of the better series I've read from that time frame, especially in terms of cohesiveness and content. I think that it feels a lot different compared to a lot of other series that had come out in that mid-2000s era. But book 3 is officially done. I have book 4 downstairs, which is The Necromancer, and I will be getting to that one after I've read a few things. I kind of wanted to take a little bit of a palate cleanser break, so I crammed through an entire book within 24 hours, actually within really more like maybe 8 hours kind of thing. I started another book last night and finished up earlier today, and then I started another book that I definitely can finish this evening. Like, it's a very short book, and then I have a novella and a manga I would like to read, and I just want to have like a little bit of a palate cleanser, especially as I'm getting to like the second half of the series with books 4, 5, and 6. I feel like it's nice to take a little bit of a break from it and just give myself a little bit of time to kind of step away from it so that I can come back to the series a little bit more fresh, because I do think that sometimes, especially with longer series or series that are more than like 3 books at a time, it's going to be important for me to be able to take a step back and take a break from it, so I'm not over encompassed in the world, over encompassed by the story, and I don't feel like I'm so bogged down with it that I can't enjoy other things. Like, I just need that little bit of a palate cleanser sometimes, and I definitely think that this is a good opportunity for me to do so, especially because I have a lot of books that I want to read this month for whatever reason, and they're shorter and I can just fly through them really quick. So it's going to be a lot easier for me to get those done and out of the way now, so that I can crank through the last 3 books in this series. And all 3 of the last books in this series are significantly shorter. I don't remember how long The Necromancer is, but I do want to say it's still in that 400 page range, but is a little bit smaller than like The Sorceress or The Magician was. And then books 5 and 6 are back to like probably in that 350 to 400 range. Like, they're extensively smaller, which book 5 definitely is. Book 6 might be back above 400 now that I'm looking at it here on this stack. I don't know. But I'm nonetheless very excited, because what's happening now is that we have yet again shifted to a new placement in the series. At the very end, we do see in the end of The Sorceress that the whole gang ends up coming back to the States, and I feel like at this point phase 1 has really like popped off and we're done with it for the most part. Now we're into like phase 2, which is gonna be a lot of like finalizing things, getting caught up with things. I mean, at this point the twins have like 3 of the 5 magical powers basically switched on. So now it's gonna be a matter of finding the last 2 teachers and then somehow in that time figure out what they're going to do to save the world before midsummer, because the timeline of things has basically expedited in this world, where instead of it being like Nicholas and Paranel only have like a month to live, it's very likely they have like a week less than that, because of all the things that have happened leading up to this point, that the elders and the dark ones, basically they are like saying, oh, midsummer's coming, one of the most important mystical days of the year. this is the day that we are going to let shit hit the fan, basically. And so Nicholas has basically said that, like, it's really important that they get everything taken care of before Midsummer, which at this point in the book is like 2 weeks away. So a lot can happen in 2 days. A lot can happen in a day, as evident in these books, because each book is split between 2 separate days. Like, you go through 1 day in the first part and 1 day in the second part, and it's gonna be interesting, to say the least. We're gonna see how things go from here. I'm excited. I'm a little nervous, but I'm very excited because I do think that now that we're back in the States, shit's gonna hit the fan real hard comparatively to how it was already hitting the fan previously. So yeah. But anyway, we're going to step away from the books for just a moment so I can read a few other things, and I will come back when I have made some progress in the Necromancer, likely within the next couple of days or something like that. It's probably going to be like a couple days before I talk to you again, just so that I have a little bit of time to get away from the books and jump back in when I've had a little bit of a palate cleanser. Alright, hello everyone. It's been several days. I have read 3 books outside of my point for this video because I needed a bit of a palate cleanser before getting back into this series, but we are getting ready tonight to start the 4th book in the Secrets of the Immortal Nicholas Flamel series, which is the Necromancer. This one is actually like deceptively shorter than the last 2 books I've read in this series. This one clocks in at about 385 pages, which is more in line with what I would expect for a YA series. Hopefully that means that this is going to be much better paced, that means that it's going to be more along the lines of what I liked with The Alchemist initially. I don't really know much of what's going into this one. All I know is that based on the way that the last book ended up, we are back in the States, and we also have Paranout back officially, so that is very nice. So yeah, this one was published in 2010, so it looks like that most of these books were published like within, you know, the next year of each other. Also, by the way, weird enough, I apparently have a lot of first editions. Like, my hardbacks specifically of this series are first editions. Who'd have thought? I got them all pretty much used, so I'm not surprised, but at the same time I am. I just didn't expect them to maybe be first edition. But anyway, so yeah, I took a little bit of a break from this world just to kind of, especially since I got to like the midway point of the series, I figured it was a good idea to do a little bit of palette cleansing, a little bit of reading of some other things I needed to get through in the month as well. But this video has gone on for almost 2 months at this point, so I better be finishing this up fairly soon. My plan is to get through a good chunk of it tonight because currently Deja from Deja's Book World is hosting sprints for their tarot readathon that they're doing over the course of July, which I have been participating in. I've been logging my books that I read for, you know, prompts and stuff like that. So this one is actually going to count wonderfully for my current tarot card, which is the 2 of Cups, which the prompt is to basically read a book that has something to do with like a partnership or involves like the power of 2, which, if you haven't figured that out by now, we're going on book 4 in this series, so I would hope you would know by now. I mean, there's a very huge thing about Sophie and Josh. They are the 2 that are one, the one that is all. Like, they are the prophesized literal twins that have been prophesized since the Book of Abraham was even created. So that's like a huge thing. So that's going to easily count for this. I think that this is going to, like I said, hopefully be something where I'm going to move through this a lot faster because the pacing is going to be a lot better. That's my hope, at least. But yeah, 385 pages, that's really awesome. And then the next 2 books, the last 2 books I have in paperback version. And if I'm not mistaken, they are about the same length, like less than 400 pages each. So I'm feeling like the second half of the series is going to get a little bit more intense, a little bit more quickly, and hopefully we'll see kind of the ramifications of some of the things that happened with Dr. John Dee in the last book, because things were not going very well for Dr. John Dee, to the point where he very likely could no longer be a thing, and so we'll have to see. But the sprints start in about 12 minutes, so I got a little bit of time. I might get started with this right beforehand, before the sprints officially start. But I also need to update my bullet journal and stuff like that, so I may do that beforehand just to be safe. Just do that real quick since I had finished 2 books before I basically fell asleep last night. Well, I finished 3 books yesterday, but 2 of them I read basically right before I went to bed and didn't update my bullet journal before going to sleep. So I'm going to do that real quick, I think. And then, yeah, then we're going to get started. I got my laptop here, which you're currently sitting on, to watch the readathon sprints and chime in, excuse me, here and there. I've got a nice candle burning, which is a Christmas candle, but it's fine. It's fine. It's soothing, it's sweet smelling, and it's very cozy. I want to have cozy vibe. Anyway, I'm gonna go update my bullet journal and stuff, and I will talk to you guys when I've made some progress in the Necromancer. Okay, so we are officially 52 pages in, ending the first sprint right now, but I do need to make a note of something that happens in this, because quite honestly, in my head it sounds funny, and to some of you it may sound funny as well if you are in any way related to what goes on in my brain. 9 chapters in, and Sophie is now kidnapped. Been kidnapped by some person who claims to be Scat Hack's twin sister, and the whole time that this kidnapping chapter is happening, the only thing that's going on in my brain is a scene from The Mummy Returns. You're here, bad guys are here, Evie's been kidnapped, so yes, they've once again raised a creature from his grave. Don't point fingers or anything, but isn't it your job to make sure that doesn't happen? It is what it is. These are the things that go on in my brain. Everything comes back to different movie quotes, but Sophie's been kidnapped, so. And things may be changing up for a certain villain, which I'm quite interested in seeing how that pans out, because I don't know how well they're going to be able to hide, considering the circumstances, so we'll have to see about that. But the first sprint is just about done, so I'm going to continue working on this. My goal for tonight, before I go to sleep, because I have taken my meds, and I have recently gotten back on my antidepressant and my mood stabilizer, which my mood stabilizer tends to make me sleep very, well. Like, it helps get me to fall asleep and stay asleep over the night, which is great. And so I've been really catching up on a lot of sleep that I've missed over the last couple of months because I haven't slept very well. But that means that usually by about 45 minutes to an hour after I've taken it, I'm about ready to fall asleep. So hopefully I can get through maybe 150 pages of this, get through 100 more pages of this before I call it there, because I'll be a little bit under halfway done with this. So I think that's manageable, and then very likely finish this up tomorrow after I've gotten some other things done that need to get done tomorrow, as soon as possible. So I'm going to check back in with you guys probably sometime tomorrow, or if I find the energy to do so before I go to sleep. Alright, good morning everybody. It is Monday, July 21st. It's currently going on 11 o'clock in the morning. I've been basically up since 6:30 this morning because I'm trying to get back into a routine of getting up early, getting ready in the morning, and getting shit done. So dropped off my husband at work today because his van, the brake line went out, so that's not good. And he was on a trip all week last week, basically almost, and he just got back last night, so I have to go drop him off at work, the next handful of days, and go pick him up. But that's all while still going back and forth to my parents' house to do work and doing homework and all kinds of other things that I can possibly do. So today's a bit of a busy day. I have been working on homework since about 8 o'clock this morning, and I'm pretty much done except for one thing, but I actually think I need to wait to do it because I kind of need a little more guidance with it's a research outline that we do in parts over time, and you're supposed to basically edit as you go. And so I think I'm gonna wait to do that last part until I get the feedback that I did from last week from my professor, and kind of go from there. So there's that. But wanted to update you guys on the Necromancer. I did not make much more progress than when I last updated you. I mean, I got through another 50 pages or so. I'm on page 104 right now. And this is, I think, going through a lot faster than I expected it to. I haven't picked it up in a couple days just because I've been busy. I don't know, it's kind of one of those things where the most that we're seeing in terms of the action is things going on from John Dee's side, who is basically trying to run away from his masters because of the fact that he's failed so many times, all these things. when it comes to like Perenelle and Nicholas and Josh and Sophie, there's not a whole lot of action except for the fact that Sophie got kidnapped in the beginning of the book. And so like we're kind of trying to figure out what's going on at this point, but it does seem, you know, to be moving a lot faster than I expected it to, because I'm already like over 20% of the way through this book at this point in time. I have a lot of errands and like chores and stuff I need to do around the house, and stuff like that. So I think that I'm gonna at least make an attempt on this last bit of homework for the day and like kind of go from there, like make my edits once I get my feedback from my professor, just so that I at least have something down for this week. And then pretty much the whole rest of the day is just like errands and doing like other things here and there. So not too bad. But anyway, didn't really have much to update you guys on because it's just been a very kind of busy morning. I also did my yoga routine this morning, so my back feels a little sore from it because it was very much like centered in like pelvic floor and like ab workout. So it was like really like, it was a lot. So my back kind of hurts, not gonna lie. But it feels good. Like it feels like a good pain, like when you like really stretch out really well. So there's that. But my thought is that I will update you guys either when I've made more progress in this or when I finish it. I'm not quite sure like what the timeline is of things for right now, but we'll go from there. So I'll talk to you guys a little bit later. Hey guys, so it is currently Saturday, July 26th. It's been a minute since I've updated you all because I've just been busy going back and forth with a lot of stuff, work with my parents and all kinds of nonsense. But I wanted to say I just finished and did the call pile rating for the Necromancer. Holy crap. This one was a lot more intense. This is, according to my call pile stats, my favorite so far of the series with an 8.86. Comes out to about a 4.5 star. Oh my gosh, this one was amazing. I really liked this one. I feel that especially the end of this was absolutely crazy. I mean, we've got so many different things going on in this one. First of all, obviously, everybody like Josh, Sophie, Nick, and Perenelle are all in San Francisco. They are all figured out, and now they are looking to essentially continue on with the twins' knowledge of the elements. Josh in particular, they are hoping to get him to learn fire. And so before all that happens though, they end up getting approached by this woman who claims to be Scat Hack's twin sister, and she kidnaps Sophie for a minute to like kind of get some information out of her, but we learn very quickly that Aoife, the sister, is like beside herself. She and Scat Hack have not talked in many centuries. She though felt Scat Hack basically leave the realm that they are in at the end of the last book, because Scat Hack and Joan of Arc basically were sent to a completely different realm. They think they were sent back in time, but it really ended up being a whole other realm. And essentially they're trying to figure out not only how to help her, but then figure out, you know, how to stop Dee and the elders from coming back and all these things. Speaking of Dr. John Dee, he's in some hot water because of his multiple failures over the course of time, and he basically now has a bounty out on his head from his elder masters, and so he's trying to basically still continue to do what he was intending to do, but he is basically floundering with figuring out how exactly he's going to essentially continue on with the quest that he was initially trying to basically partake in. In addition to that, we have things going on Alcatraz, where Machiavelli and another character we met in the last book, Billy the Kid, are trapped on Alcatraz, and they're figuring out how are they supposed to kind of play into all this. They're really just figuring out like what exactly are they supposed to do, how are they going to help, what are they going to need to do kind of in the background as everything else is happening to continue on this idea of, you know, wiping out the world in a sense to bring back the Dark Elders. So there's a ton of things that go on in here. We meet the character of Prometheus, who we learn is a very powerful individual and very likely is the reason why humans are a thing. There's stories that, you know, indicate that he was the one to bring humans to life in a lot of ways, which I really appreciated that kind of lore building within him, because that was not something I knew about the god of Prometheus. All I knew about him was that he had stolen fire from the gods and had been punished for it. And then we learn a lot more about the different shadow realms, and there is a character that comes in fairly late into the story that is very much playing into this idea of wibbly wobbly tiny wimey things, because if there's gonna be shadow realms and if there's going to be all kinds of different planes of existence, there's also got to be some kind of time warping in some capacity. So very, very fun read. The very end, I am kind of just shook a little bit because of the fact that Josh has officially ended up siding with Dr. John Dee, and I am not sure how I feel about it, but I knew it was kind of coming since like the very first book. I knew that there was the possibility that this would come up because there's a lot of things that Dee has essentially promised and has essentially said, like, you know, I think that you're not getting everything that you should be in terms of your powers and your abilities, and I'm going to help with that. And so Josh has kind of been, since the very first book, having an inkling towards possibly working with John Dee. Just didn't know if he could 100% trust him, like he couldn't 100% trust Nicholas and Perenelle, all these things. So I am interested to see how the next 2 books and the final 2 books in this series pan out, which are the Warlock and the Enchantress, which the Enchantress is a little bit longer than the Warlock, but the Warlock is fairly short. I mean, this is like going back to like the length of what I would remember of like the Alchemist, it feels like. I mean, it's only like less than 10 pages shorter than the Necromancer. I mean, let's be real here. But I am interested in this because based on the cover, I can see some like Egyptian inspired things with the scarab, and there's an Ankh on here, and I believe it's the Eye of Horus. So I'm thinking we're probably going to come around some ancient Egyptian people more so in this one. So this is the one we're going to be working on next. I hopefully should get through this in a few days. But I have a wedding to go to today, so I have to actually go start getting ready for that, go take like a shower and start getting around for that. But very happy to say that we finally have like beaten the favorite, which is the Alchemist at this point, with the Necromancer now being the favorite, with the Alchemist being in the number 2 spot. And quite a jump, honestly. Like, we went from like a 7 something to an 8, almost 9 rating. So very happy with that. But we're gonna go ahead and get ready for this wedding, and I will very likely be reading a little bit of this on the way there and on the way back. So see you guys when I've made some progress. Okay guys, it is currently July 30th. Unfortunately, I have to do this early because I'm getting ready to go on a trip, and I am expecting to finish the Secrets of the Immortal Nicholas Flamel series while I'm on this trip, because I am nearly done with book 5 at this point, and I will be starting book 6 while likely I'm on the trip. So in order to prepare for this upcoming trip and make sure that I have all my ducks in a row, we're gonna go ahead and roll for what next episode's going to be focusing on. And if I start that during my trip, fantastic. If not, fine, sure, okay. I would just rather make sure that I have it in the format that I need, and then, you know, not have to worry about needing it when I don't have it. Okay, first and foremost, we need to figure out where is the book coming from. So I'm gonna take my phone's going off. I'm gonna take my D8 and we're gonna see where it's coming from. Number 3, which is going to be an audiobook that I own. Awesome. All right, so let's go to the audiobook page and we'll see what we got. So for this, I need to randomize between 1 and however many exactly audiobooks I own. I own all the ones through Audible that I've gotten like with credits and stuff, so we'll randomize 1 to whatever and see what we end up with. Basically figured out how many I have. I have 37 audiobooks through Audible. So let's go ahead and see which one we get. Number 6. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, Great Vampire's not that. Oathbringer, which means I need to go all the way back and read The Way of Kings again. And then continue, because there's been 2 other books since Oathbringer. Yay! Oh boy. Well, that sucks. Thankfully, this will be a reread for me, which is nice, at least of the books 1 through 4. But then I have Wind and Truth that I need to read. Fuck. I thought I was gonna get away from big books and series this second round. Apparently not. Apparently not. But what's nice is that I have the first 4 books on audio through Audible, because I had just basically gotten them as I had credits when I had been using Audible. So there's that. Oh, and I have Wind and Truth. I can do all of these on audio. That is amazing. Oh my gosh. Okay, I feel so much better about that now. Still sucks, but that's a lot better than what I was expecting. So we will, in the next episode, be rereading the first 4 books in the Stormlight Archive and then getting into book 5, Wind and Truth. Thought I was gonna get away from a long video for next episode, but I guess not. Not gonna happen. So at least I'll get some good time with my crochet projects, because I've been making a lot of good progress on my cardigan I've been working on. So maybe I will finish it with listening to the first book. So yay. I'll wait to start that though until I've officially finished, obviously, The Secrets of the Immortal Nicholas Flamel, but it is very likely I could start it while I'm on my trip, which is this weekend from Friday to Monday. So yay. Okay, I only have a couple minutes to talk about this because I have to go pick up Robert from work in about 8 minutes. But you remember when I said that The Necromancer was my favorite book of the series so far? I have a better one. 9.29. 9.29 this received. Oh my god, this, holy crap. Like, I just finished it like 5 minutes ago. I am struggling for words because this was just so much fun to read. It was so fast to fly through. The ending, I am shook with, because we just found out who exactly Josh and Sophie's parents are and how they are exactly tied into everything and why the twins are so important in this world. It's just, oh my god, I can't even imagine what the final book is gonna go into, because so much got revealed at the end of this book and I am just like, I'm geeking out. I'm having so much fun reading this series. I did not expect this to be the favorite of the group. I seriously thought that nothing was gonna beat The Necromancer. Boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I very, very, very wrong. Like, there is so much that goes on in this, just from watching both Josh and Sophie be separated, because at the end of the last book, Josh decides to go off with Dr. John D. And so Sophie's a lot of this book really trying to figure out what to do about that, and she's trying to also help still Paranel and Nicholas, who is very quickly dying at a rapid rate. And you know, we just basically find that in this book a lot of the characters finally kind of like come together for what's going to be the big battle scene at the end of this. Like, this is very much the book where everybody starts coming back together, everybody starts, you know, making their amends, because this could very well be the end of the world as they know it. So I really like this. I love the way too that we start to see John D actually start to kind of go insane a little bit in this one. Like, it is very clear that over the course of time, since he's kind of been considered what's called an Utlaga, which means like basically a traitor, a betrayer of sorts, since he's gone against his masters, basically like you start to see him slowly start to unwind a little bit, and not for good reasons. And I think that that's going to end up becoming his downfall, and it's actually threatened by another character, that his arrogance and stupidity and his basically like, I don't even know what you would call it, but basically his arrogance is going to be his downfall. And so I highly expect that that's going to be the case at the end of this one. However, at the very end, Sophie ends up going along with Josh because she doesn't want to be separated from him anymore. And she knows that she's supposed to be with him when everything goes down. So she follows him into this other plane, which we can assume is what's called Dinotalis, which is this big land that used to be where all the gods and stuff were before it was destroyed. And we know who John Dee's masters are. They are Isis and Osiris. Isis and Osiris apparently are Josh and Sophie's parents? What? Like, I'm shook. I am shook at that because we learned in this one just how long everybody has been involved in the basic, like, looking out for these two and following the family tree of these two for centuries and for millennia, like how their family has been looked upon and looked over by two very, very important figures. And all of a sudden, we find out that they traced all the way back to Isis and Osiris. What? How exactly does that work? Because if Isis and Osiris are the masters of John Dee, how is it that they are the ones that are wanting the Dark Elders to come back? And how is it that they are also the parents of the prophesized twins? Like, the water's a little murkier now, but for good reason that I think the final book is going to wrap up and explain a lot about. So very excited for this. I am like on the edge of my seat by the end of this. I think I'm gonna go right into the final book later tonight and get started on it. I'm going on a trip here for the next few days with my family up north. And so I'm gonna have a lot of time tomorrow in the car to read. So I expect to be getting through a huge chunk of it. The final book is a lot bigger than this one. I think it's like a little bit more closer to that 500-page mark again, just like some of the, like the second and the third book were basically. But I still think that this is going to be an interesting like development of story. I am very hopeful that the ending is going to be successful and it's going to end in a satisfying way. But I don't want to get my hopes up too much in case that it kind of falls flat. So we'll kind of see, but I'm really excited to get started with it. I'm gonna go pick up my husband from work and then I'll get started with it as I ruminate on this before I film anything TikTok wise for this, because I'm supposed to do a TikTok review of this and also make a little Instagram picture of it, which I'll do the Instagram picture of it now while I'm thinking about it, but the TikTok video is gonna take a little bit because I need to like really like parse out my thoughts a little bit more on this one to make it a more cohesive little mini review for it. But wow, like compared to all of the other books in the series, mind you, with the Necromancer having been, you know, second favorite at this point, this was leaps and bounds better than anything else in the series, like writing wise, atmosphere wise, intrigue, plot development. Like this got 9s and 10s across the board, which is absolutely amazing. I did not expect it to be like that until I got to like the very end of it and was left so happy and excited. So I guess we'll have to see if the final book can get 10s across the board or not. I'm hoping it's gonna still be in that 8 to 9 range like the rest of the books have been, but I don't know. We'll have to see if it can make a perfect 10 and stick the landing. So we'll see. Hello. I'm sitting on the floor in the living room area so I can have some semblance of a bookish thing because it's still too hot upstairs. Today is Wednesday, August 6th. I've returned from my trip, which I spent the majority of the ride there and back reading The Enchantress, and I just finished it earlier today. Oh my gosh, Oscar, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Okay, so putting this through Cawpile, it is official. The last 3 books in this series progressively get closer and closer to 10 stars. This is now the favorite of the bunch because this ended up getting, I think it was like a 9.7 something. Let me double check that. 9.71 is what this got. This almost was a perfect 10 out of 10. Oh my god. So, I mean, and that stands to reason, and it makes sense considering that this is the very last book in the series. You would really hope that the last book in the series is like really good, but over the course of this entire reading experience of reading this series for the last couple of months, it's been interesting because all of the books have been at least 4 stars, which is fantastic, but I really like how the second half of the series continuously seem to have gotten better. I mean, let me look at the stats overall for the whole thing. The Alchemyst got a 7.86, and then we dropped to a 7.14 with the Magician, jumped back up to a 7.57 for the Sorceress. Then when we got to the Necromancer, we jumped to an 8.86, and then we crossed the 9 threshold with the Warlock being at 9.29, and then the Enchantress finally came in at a 9.71. The only two places that did not receive a 10 were for logic and characters, which mostly was me kind of looking at logic and characters together. Like, there was a couple characters that kind of either died or had something happen to them that I was kind of like, that's kind of disappointing that that person died or that person, you know, had this thing happen to them, because it kind of was one of those things where it was just not necessarily what I would have done per se, but still, this is like an amazing final installment of a series. It was action-packed the whole time. This is literally where hell is breaking loose and the end of the world is upon us, basically, is the vibe of this whole book. And I really liked that. I think that it kept me really going, especially when I was on the car ride up to the Upper Peninsula where I was vacationing, and on the way back, it made it so that I wanted to read a lot, but I also wanted to make sure I took my time with it. So I read like 10 chapters at a time, which was around like 50-ish pages or so at a time, while I was up there. And then I would like break that up with crocheting or something like that, also to kind of keep my mind from getting sleepy in a sense, because if I do read for a long time, I do start to get really tired, especially on car rides. And so I was trying to break up my reading a little bit within this, but I read a lot of this on the way up there, and all up until like the last 115 pages on the ride back. And then I read some of this morning when I was done with my class for today, because I had my last class for my final summer class today. And so I read another like some 60 pages or so like that, basically, before I left to go meet up with my mom to help her with some things. And then I read the last 40 some pages, 40 to 50-ish pages, while I was waiting for her while she was in a meeting, before we moved on to the next thing. And so I crammed through this book. Well, I like binged through this book in a ridiculous amount of time. I mean, I think it still took me like a little bit more than a week to finish it, but when I was in it, and I was like binging it like nobody's business. It was insane. I feel like that this is such a very satisfying conclusion. There were some things that in this one I kind of had guessed from books previous in terms of how it would end up for certain characters, but I still, by the last page of this, was tearing up and wanting to cry, because there were some really powerful deaths within this. Like, this is definitely a series where when it comes to the final book, don't expect a lot of people to be alive by the end of it, because it's very much one of those things where literally everyone is sacrificing themselves to save the world. The people that do survive, I was really happy with seeing kind of a little bit about how their story continues past this, because it's mentioned kind of in passing. But there are 2 shorter stories. I want to say they're more novellas that do follow secondary characters that are in this series. One of which is Joan of Arc, who is an immortal character that we meet in book 2, and that spans the rest of the series. And then we have another one following Billy the Kid, who is another immortal that we meet in, I think it's book 3, and he spans the rest of the series as well. And I am very interested in reading those eventually, but because they're not necessarily like part of this actual series, and they're more so continuations of the world essentially, I did not count them for this, because I felt like I wanted to really focus on like a main series kind of thing. Plus, I don't have the 2 novellas, and I would have to purchase them, and I really don't want to try to do that, even though I've been buying books still. I just don't want to have to go searching for them, especially since they're novellas, because that means I'd have to use Amazon, and I really don't want to use Amazon right now. This has so much going on with it, and like for good reasons, because there was a lot of things that needed to be tied up. There were a lot of questions regarding a certain character that comes up, and I want to say it was either book 4 or the last book. I think it was book 4 he came in and spanned the rest of the series. Like, there was a large character that we were all questioning what exactly, I say we all as if there was more than me, it was really just me, there was a character where I felt I was really unsure of what his point was, but I did have an idea. The further I got into this one specifically, I started to piece things together, and when I realized that I was right, it was not one of those scenarios where I was like, oh my gosh, I guessed it. Like, that's kind of anticlimactic. It was actually one of those things where I was like, wait a minute, could it possibly be this person? And then when I was right, I was like, oh my God, that is crazy. Like, that just opens up this whole other can of worms that, like, is amazing about this series. I have to say, one thing I loved about this series, and now I'm going to kind of talk more about the series in general, now that I finished it and kind of want to talk about it in general and give you guys kind of my results. I feel like that this series in particular has been so well done. I mean, I've said from the very first book how this series has been one where it stands the test of time, despite it having been in that like weird 2000s YA time period when it started, because the first book was published in 2007, the last book published in about 2012. So we spent about 5-6 years of time where this series in particular has come out practically back to back to back to back to back to back. And one of the things is that, especially in this time period, YA fantasy is not necessarily something that does very well. It's one of those things where, like, a lot of us can, I think, recognize and agree with that they're just not books that really stand the test of time. They don't seem to be timeless. They don't seem to really hold up in terms of like modern standards, right? 2025 standards. This is a series though where I definitely think it is one of the best ones I have ever read, and I think that it will continue to be so because nothing in the story dates it. It doesn't really seem to have anything that makes it seem like it can't be placed at whatever time period that you are in when you are reading it. In addition to that, I feel that the characters of Josh and Sophie themselves are characters that, despite having been written in that late 2000s YA time period, they don't feel like those caricature or overused YA characters for both male and female teenagers. And I really appreciate that because I feel like that, especially in this time frame, there's so many very cookie cutter YA characters, especially that are teenagers, that authors would like really delve into, and how that would sometimes carry over into more modern YA characterizations. But this, I feel like, has some of the most dynamic and some of the most interesting characters I've met so far in YA in general. Like, I would even go so far to say as this may be one of my more favorite YA series of all time, because I just feel like that this is not only a series that I could see myself rereading, but I feel like that there are very few YA series or even standalones, like YA books in general, that meet the level of not only like likability of the characters, but also the logic of the characters' thinking over the course of the series was actually really conducive to what I would have thought if I were in their position. Like, the back and forth nature of Josh over the course of the series with whether or not he should side with the Flamels or with Dr. John Dee, that was a very interesting dilemma that I said from the very beginning I wanted to see more of. I wanted to see more of that, you know, conflicting nature going on, and we got that throughout the series, and it was really wonderful to see. I really liked how Michael Scott played with that aspect and really made it feel like Josh was a real person having these real conflicting emotions. And Sophie, to the same extent. Now, she didn't necessarily want to side with John Dee like her brother did, but the characterization of Sophie was strong, and she had her own opinions and she had her own thoughts, and they did get muddled, unfortunately, with a lot of the things that she was being told. And, you know, she felt so real and felt so similar to how I think I would be in her position, where I'm getting all this information from all these different sources. I can't parse out what exactly my own thoughts are sometimes because I'm so riddled with literally everybody else's thoughts and opinions and histories and all these things that it's become so overwhelming, and it can be so hard to figure out what is the next step. And I really love how these characters just felt so real and so grounded. Despite everything that was going on around them, they were still so grounded. They felt so linked to their original intention as characters, and I just loved it so much. I am going to be singing this series' praises
for years to come. Like, I loved this series. I'm so glad my husband recommended me reading this series because he knew I was going to enjoy it immensely, and I most certainly did. I think I enjoyed it way more than I expected it to. With that being said, what is the ultimate result of this first episode? So the whole series of The Secrets of the Immortal Nicholas Flamel is a series I am going to keep. Not only because of the fact that it is a series my husband has enjoyed and he would like to reread eventually, but because I genuinely have enjoyed all of the books. As I've said, all of the books received at least a 4 or 5 star, and so per my rulings, the series is going to stay. And it also is going to stay because I do see it as being a rereadable series. I definitely feel like there are a lot of scenes I would like to go back and reread eventually, or giving it a few years, maybe I go back and read it again. I do feel like that this is a series that I would love to also then possibly have my kids read in the future when they're getting into reading and they're getting into fantasy and things like that, especially when they're a little bit older. I definitely think this is a series that I will be recommending immensely to so many people. So for those reasons, I definitely feel like this is a series I would like to keep and I would like to own. That is going to be it for this very first long episode regarding this TBR project thing. I am really happy to finally have this episode done because raw footage, I was looking at over 5 hours worth of content, and I've edited as I've gone on kind of thing on the books, and I'm still closing in like 2.5 hours at this point. So it's gonna be a long one. So if you've made it this far into the video, first of all, thank you so much for sticking with me this entire thing. It is absolutely insane that you sat here for, you know, 2+ hours watching me talk about these books and gushing and doing all kinds of other things. But please leave a book emoji in the comments to let me know that you made it this far, because I will seriously like give you all the props for that. That is insane to sit this long and deal with that. But as you guys saw earlier, we did end up figuring out what our next episode is going to entail, which is going to be having me read the first 4 books of the Stormlight Archive for the second time, and then reading the 5th and most recent book. What is it called? Wind and Truth? Yes, that's what it's called. And I will be listening to all of them on audio, so that is going to be very interesting. I have no idea how I'm going to fare with this because I feel like the audiobooks are really good the first time around for me with this series, but I don't know how it's going to fare again, so we'll see. But thank you guys so much for joining me in this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up. Again, let me know if you've made it this far in the video. I really appreciate your time if you did. And as always, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.